Hello everyone, my name is Jonathan Murray and I'm part of the GRE Client Relations team at Educational Testing Service. I'm happy to be here with you today to give you some more information about the GRE Revised General Test. I did want to thank College Week Live for this opportunity to be here with you to provide this information on International Day. So let's get started. Here's a look at the topics that we're going to cover today. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the GRE testing program itself. Then we'll take a look at the actual GRE tests that are within the program. We'll also obviously talk about the overview of the GRE Revised General Test, talking a little about the test content, the new structure to the test, as well as the scores and the score reporting process. In addition to that, we'll talk about some of the general test preparation strategies that we recommend from ETS, as well as our various test preparation materials that we have. And lastly, I'll tie up the presentation talking about some of our additional materials we have available to you in addition to the actual test itself. And also feel free to enter questions. There's a question box, as I'm sure you're all aware of. So feel free to enter your questions and I will address them at the end of the presentation. So first and foremost, here's just a general overview of the GRE program. First we have the GRE Revised General Test. Now this is a test that's going to measure your general verbal reasoning skills, quantitative reasoning skills, as well as your analytical writing skills. This test is meant to be, as I said, a general reasoning test, so it's basically a measure of skills that you've acquired over time throughout your educational career. In addition to the revised test, we also have GRE subject tests. Now, depending on what program you're applying to, the program may require you to take a subject test in addition to the revised test. They may highly recommend it. It really just depends on the program. You'll see the breakdown of the GRE subject tests that we have available. That's biochem, cell, and molecular biology, biology, chemistry, literature and English, mathematics, physics, and psychology. In addition to this, we also have a new tool available to you. It's called the ETS Personal Potential Index. And I'll talk a little bit more about this later in the presentation, but essentially what it is, it's an assessment of your non-cognitive skills, so like knowledge and creativity, teamwork, communication skills, things like that. And you would ask a faculty member, such as a professor that you may have worked with, maybe an employer that you've worked for, or an advisor to complete this for you to submit to an institution as part of your application. So here's a look at the GRE test at a glance. First of all, we have the GRE Revised General Test. This is available in a computer-based format, which is the predominant form of the test that's given throughout the world. I would say about 95-ish% of the test is delivered on a computer-based format. But we also do have a paper-based format available for the GRE. Now we have the paper-based format available in areas where we aren't able to sustain electricity, internet connectivity, things like that for an extended period of time. Now we make the paper-based test available to ensure that you have access to take the test if you need to do so. The computer-based test is available on a continuous basis, so that it's basically given at testing centers throughout the world, 7 days a week typically, depending on the availability at the testing center. Now the paper-based test is offered 3 times a year. It's offered in October, November, and February. And the cost for the general test is $185. And as you can see, the breakdown of the timing, the computer-based test is about 3 hours and 45 minutes, and the paper-based test is about 3.5 hours. Now the subject tests are only delivered in a paper-based format. They're offered 3 times a year, and they're offered in September, October, and April. The cost for those is $150, and that test is about 3 hours long. So some of the advantages that you're going to see or be able to take advantage of with the GRE Revised General Test is the fact that this test is accepted by thousands of graduate and business schools as well as programs throughout the world. We actually have seen a substantial increase in the number of business programs around the world that are accepting the GRE for admissions. There's over 1,000 business schools that actively accept the GRE as another option for you in the admissions process. Let's say you're a student that's kind of on the fence, you don't know if you want to go towards a business program or a particular graduate program. You could take one test to pursue both options. So that's a really nice benefit that the GRE does provide to you that other admissions tests do not provide to you. We are very widely accessible. We have over 700 locations or testing locations around the world. So chances are there is a GRE testing center nearby you or in your local area. And it also is a little bit less expensive than other graduate admissions tests that are out there. Here's a few other benefits to the GRE. First being the score select option. This is a new option that we made available to students in July of last year, July of 2012. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in detail later on in the presentation. But essentially what it does, it gives you the power of confidence, and it gives you the opportunity to provide any set of scores that you want to a particular graduate business program. So let's say you took the test twice and you weren't really happy with how you performed on one of those particular occurrences. You wouldn't necessarily have to send that set of scores to the program that you're applying to. So it essentially allows you to choose, as I said, the set of scores that you want to send to a particular program. In the past, score reporting was always cumulative. So whether you did poorly on a particular administration, that set of scores would always be sent to an institution when you did apply to them. But now you have a choice. You have a lot of added value to the test. We have a number of test preparation materials created by the test maker, so it's a really great place to start from a test preparation perspective. We'll talk about those more throughout the presentation as well. We offer a free listing in the GEO Research Service. This is a database that you opt into, and this database is accessed by institutions all over the world that may be searching for prospective students like you. They use it for recruitment purposes, and they'll purchase lists of names that fit a particular profile of student that they're looking for. So it helps connect you with programs that you may not even thought of, that may be a fantastic fit for you for your graduate or business school studies. In addition to that, we offer, as I said, the ETS Personal Potential Index, and you can send up to 4 free reports to institutions along with your GRE test registration fee. And we'll talk about that more later, as I said. So here's a breakdown of the GRE Revised General Test. First and foremost, you're going to take the Analytical Writing section first when you come in to take the test. And in this section, you're going to address an issue task as well as an argument task. You're going to be given 30 minutes to respond to each of these particular tasks. And in this section, we're really looking to measure your critical thinking and your analytical writing skills. So basically, the issue task is you're going to be deconstructing someone's argument, whereas in the argument task, you're going to be constructing your own argument. So the two tasks kind of complement each other. Now, there's also a verbal reasoning section, as I mentioned. There's 2 sections in the verbal reasoning measure. In the verbal reasoning measure, we're looking at your reading comprehension skills, your verbal and analytical reading skills, so you're going to get a lot of reading questions and things like that, measure of vocabulary, but we'll talk about that later. You're also going to get 2 quantitative reasoning sections. Now, in the quantitative reasoning sections, we're focusing on basic concepts of arithmetic, algebra, geometry, and data analysis. Now, in the verbal and the quantitative reasoning sections, there's going to be 20 questions in each of the sections. And as I said, you're going to be getting 2 verbal reasoning sections as well as 2 quantitative reasoning sections. Now here's a look at some of the overall test content in the GRE Revised General Test. We have made a lot of changes throughout the test. Some of the things you're going to notice is that there's a lot more text-based type questions. So there's going to be more reading passages. There's going to be more questions that require you to basically look at a paragraph and select the appropriate vocabulary word to complete that paragraph. So there's a lot more, as I said, reading comprehension. This really reflects more of what you're going to be doing in graduate and business school. We did remove the antonyms and analogies section from the test. However, as I said, vocabulary is still important, but it's going to be measured within context, so within those paragraphs. In the quantitative section, there's more real-life scenarios and data interpretation type questions. What this means is there's going to be more word problems. And data interpretation questions simply means you're going to see a lot more charts, more graphs, things like that. Some of the new features to the test is that we're asking you to highlight relevant sentences within a paragraph. So for example, on the verbal reasoning measure in one of the reading comprehension passages, you'll see the passage and you'll be asked to select a portion of that paragraph that best answers the question. There are also some questions that require you to select more than one answer. And lastly, we do have some numeric entry type questions. So in addition to the multiple choice questions, you're going to get a handful of those numeric entry type questions. So you heard me mention before that there are two verbal reasoning sections within the measure, and there are two quantitative reasoning sections within the quantitative measure. So what this does is this allows you as a student to actually navigate back and forth within a particular verbal reasoning section, for example. So let's say you're in the first verbal reasoning section. So you get in the section, you can actually go back and forth within that section. You can skip questions, you can change your answers, you can go back. So it really creates a more natural feeling or natural flow to the test-taking process. Now, what this does is basically when you're in we'll use the verbal reasoning measure as an example. So you're in the first verbal reasoning section. Now, based on your performance in that first verbal reasoning section, the second verbal reasoning section is either going to be more difficult or less difficult. So basically, the first verbal reasoning section is going to be a medium or an average level of difficulty section, and then the second section within the verbal reasoning measure will either be more difficult, as I said, or less difficult. So it's basically adjusting to your ability levels. And the same would apply for the quantitative section. So it's also important to note, and I'll talk about the scoring process more later, but I just want to mention it here too, is that every question within each section is worth 1 point. So you have 20 questions in each of the sections, so there's a total of 40 questions in each of the measures. So there's 40 verbal questions and there's 40 quantitative questions. Each one of those questions is worth 1 point. You're obviously going to get a few breaks throughout the test. There is a 1-minute break in between each of the sections, but there is actually a 10-minute break after the third section of the computer-based test. So this is a good time to take advantage of if you need to use the restroom or if you need to refresh scratch paper, things like that. But the important thing to note is if you decide to step away during one of the shorter breaks, if you decide to step away for more than a minute, that the clock will just continue to start. So if it passes that minute, the next section will begin, and that will take away from time that you have to address the questions in the following section. So it's important to budget your time and try to, if you need to do anything extra that may take you longer than a minute, is to try to do that during the 10-minute break. So one of the benefits to the GRE Revised General Test, I touched on this briefly before, is the new test-taker friendly design. And this is what I mentioned where you have the ability to navigate back and forth within sections. You can change and edit your answers. You can skip questions. So it really gives you that more natural feel when taking the test. There's also an on-screen calculator in the quantitative section, which is always nice to have to use. And it's a standard function calculator, 4-function calculator, so you're going to have addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and square root capabilities on that calculator. And as I said, it's an on-screen calculator. You can't bring your own calculator to the testing session, so you can only use the one that's on the screen. And for paper-based test takers, we do provide ETS-approved calculators at the testing center. Here's a snapshot of what you'll see at the testing, while you're taking the test. So up top here, you have the different buttons that you'll be able to use. So over on the far right-hand side, you will see the next button and the back button. That will allow you to navigate within a particular section. You have the help button, so you can click that if you need to refer to any of the directions within the test. You have a calculator button available in the quantitative section, so that pulls up the calculator. and it'll make the calculator disappear as well. But you also have a mark feature. So let's say you see this question here, and you're having difficulty with the question. What you can do is you can click mark, and that'll flag the question for you to come back to. Now, if you want to see how you're doing, or not how how many questions you've answered within a particular section, you can click the review tab. So the review tab will pull up all 20 questions within the particular section you're in, and you'll be able to see if you've answered the question, if you haven't answered the question, if you've flagged it to come back to. So it really allows you to gauge your progress within a particular section. Now with the GRE Revised General Test, we did introduce a brand new score scale. Our scores are now on a 130 to 170 point score scale in 1-point increments for the verbal reasoning section and the quantitative reasoning section. So you're going to get a score on the 130-170 scale for verbal, and you're also going to get a score on the 130 to 170 scale for quantitative. In addition to that, you're also going to get a score on the analytical writing section from 0 to 6 in half-point increments. So you're going to get a total of 3 scores when you take the GRE Revised General Test. So now let's take a closer look at the scoring for the verbal and the quantitative reasoning sections. So your scores in each of the measures are based on both of the sections in the test. So it's very important that you try your hardest and do as well as you can on all the sections. And so basically what we do is for each of the measures, we take a raw score, which is the number of questions that you answer correctly, and then we compute that to a scaled score using a process known as equating. Now in equating, this is where we account for the level of difficulty of the sections and the questions. So that's important to keep in mind. But as I said, make sure you're trying as hard as you can on all of the questions. And you're only penalized, the test is based on questions that you get correct. So if you get an answer incorrect, you're not penalized for it. Your score is only based on the number of questions that you get correct. So essentially we call it right scored. Now with the analytical writing section, both of your responses will be scored by human raters. So your responses will be saved at the testing center. They'll be encrypted and sent back to ETS for scoring. So we're gonna have one human reader scoring your analytical writing issue task as well as one scoring your argument task. And so they'll provide a score on the 0 to 6 scale, and they're going to provide a holistic score. So they're looking at your response holistically, the entire response. They're not looking at little specific areas and things like that. They're going to look at it overall. They're going to give you an overall score. So you're going to get one score from a human reader or human rater, and then you're going to get another score from our automated scoring engine. Now, if for some reason the scores from the human and the automated scoring engine differ by a certain amount of points, then a second reader or rater will come in and score the test, or score that particular response. So basically what we do is we take an average score of the 2 scores to report one overall score for the analytical writing section. So when you're at the testing center, you've gotten through the test, you've completed it, you're going to get an opportunity to decide if you want to report your scores. Now reporting your scores means that you're accepting them and that they've become a part of your permanent testing record with us. If for some reason you decide you want to cancel your scores, they'll be canceled and they'll be thrown away and they will not be a part of your actual record. Now the important thing to note is you have to make this decision before seeing the scores. So basically once the test is completed, you're going to be asked if do you want to report your scores, do you want to cancel your scores. So you have to do this based solely on how you felt you did. So if you decide to cancel your scores, as I said, they'll be thrown away completely. If you decide to report them, they'll be a part of your permanent testing history, and you will be able to see them on the following screen for the verbal and the quantitative sections. Now, since we introduced this new score select option, there really isn't much of a reason to cancel your scores, because as I said, you can pick and choose the set of scores you want to send to a particular program or school. So I mean, you can cancel them if you want. We do provide that opportunity, but with the score select option, it just gives you a little more flexibility in the sense that you're not having to send those particular scores. So let's use the example that you decide to report your scores. So you'll report them, and you'll see them on the following screen. They are unofficial at that point because they do need to go through processing at ETS, back at ETS, so statistical processing, things like that. And once they're completed with that, they'll become official. We also do need to score the analytical writing section. As I scored, it's by human raters, so that is all sent back to ETS, and that's why we cannot provide you with your analytical writing scores at the testing center, because there are human readers or raters involved. So as I said, this new score select option does give you the power of confidence where you can go in and choose which set of scores you want to send to a particular program or a school. So when you're at the testing center, you have two options with the score select. You can choose your most recent set of scores, or your most recent test. That's obviously the test that you had just taken. You can send just those scores to a program, or you can send scores from your entire reportable history at the testing center. Now we do offer you the opportunity to send your scores to up to 4 institutions for free at the testing center. So let's say you decide you want to send your most recent set of scores. You can send your most recent set of scores to 4 different programs free of charge from that particular testing center. So after you leave the testing center, you can also, actually let me go to the next slide here. So after test day, and after you leave the testing center, you're obviously still able to take advantage of the score select option. You basically would go into your My GRE account once scores are available. You can choose to send your most recent option. You can choose to send all of your scores from your reportable history, or you can choose to send any of them. So let's say, for example, you took the test twice, and the second time you took it, you just didn't feel confident in those scores, and you just felt they didn't reflect your best performance in the test. You could basically choose just that other set of scores and send that to a particular graduate or business school program. So again, just to summarize, what the score select option does for you, it gives you that power of confidence that you don't need to send the scores that don't reflect your personal best. And you can take the test again if you need to. Our test repeater policy is you can take the test once every 30 days, but no more than 5 times in a 12-month rolling period. Now, score reporting. Scores are going to be available 10 to 15 days following your administration date, and you can access those directly from your My GRE account. You'll be able to pull up and see them in your account, and this is when they're sent to your institutions, if you had chosen them at the testing center. So schools receive scores electronically. They also receive them in a paper format. So just keep in mind that if a school, I know you're likely not to know how a school receives them, but there are 2 ways. Most schools do receive scores electronically, and that is obviously a lot quicker. But if a school does receive scores in a paper format, it may take a little bit more time for the school to receive your scores. So just keep that in mind when reaching out to the school and letting them know that you've sent your scores, and if you wanted to check on your application and things like that. Now, if you decided to take advantage of the score select option, meaning let's say you only chose one set of scores as opposed to sending both sets to a school, assuming you took the test twice, the school will not know that you only chose one set of scores. So they're not going to have any idea that you decided to take advantage of that score select option. Now, one thing I did want to mention, I don't know if it was clear, is that you can't pick and choose a verbal score from one administration and a quantitative score from another administration. You have to send scores from a complete, intact administration. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about the test preparation material that we have available to you. First, let's start with the free stuff. Everybody loves free materials. Whenever I speak with students, I always heavily promote our PowerPrep 2 software. This can be accessed directly from our website. You can download it right to your computer, and what it does is it provides you with a very detailed overview of each of the particular sections of the test. provides you with a lot of general tips and strategies, things like that. But most importantly, it provides you with 2 full-length practice tests. So this is, it's going to basically mock the test administration as much as it possibly can, and you're actually going to get scores at the end. So it's a really great tool to take advantage of, just to get a sense of how you would perform. It's also a great tool to take advantage of and to get used to, navigating within a test, using the calculator, responding to the different formats of the question. So I highly, highly recommend that you take advantage of this. We also have a practice test booklet for the paper-based test. This is also available on our website, free to you to download. We have a math review document, which is a very, very in-depth look at the quantitative section. So if you have difficulties or you may struggle a little bit on the quantitative side, highly, highly recommend that you take a look at this. This document is about 100 pages long, so it really provides a lot of really in-depth information about the quantitative section of the GRE Revised General Test. In addition to that, we have a math conventions document, so it gives you a sense of assumptions you can make about the quantitative section throughout the test. We also have a test preparation book that you can purchase directly off our web. It's called The Official Guide to the GRE Revised General Test, 2nd edition. This is available in a paperback format, and it's also available in an ebook format. This is a really great book. It provides even more in-depth strategies and tips and things like that. There's explanations for why answers are to certain questions. So it provides a lot of a really close look at the test and the questions and the sections, and it also provides reader commentary for the analytical writing section responses, things like that. So it's really a great resource for you, and it's created by the test makers. So when you're looking at the test preparation books, this may be something you want to consider. Going for one of the test preparation books created by the actual test makers. It provides you with the Power Prep CD, so that's 2 free practice tests, but it also provides you with an additional 2 practice tests that are included within the paperback book or the ebook. Now, recently we released an app in the iTunes Store. Now, this app is basically an extension of the GRE Revised General Test official guide. So if you're a person that's constantly on the go and you like to use your phone when maybe you're traveling on a train or anything like that, definitely take advantage of the app. The app will provide you with a bunch of sample questions and things like that for you to practice, tips and strategies. Basically, as I said, it's an extension of the GRE official guide, but can be a very convenient way to prepare for the test when you're on the go. Very recently, we released a couple success starter videos. These videos are available for purchase off of our website directly. There's one video that covers the entire test, so it gives you a very great look at the GRE Revised General Test as a whole. But we also released one that's looking specifically at the verbal reasoning measure as well as the quantitative reasoning measure. So each of these videos provide you with tips and strategies for preparing for the test directly from us at ETS. And this could also be if you're not really into using the preparation books and you like to use videos to prepare and to provide you with information. This could be a great way for you to conveniently to get a nice quick look or a nice sense of what you should be doing to prepare for the GRE verbal as well as the GRE quantitative. And each of these videos are 20 to 22 minutes long. We also have a tool specifically for our analytical writing section. This is called Score It Now. Now, what this essentially does, it provides you with prompts from the analytical writing section. So you can practice writing, and it provides you with instant score feedback, so you can get a sense of your response. Maybe, and it talks about where you need to improve, some of your weaknesses, your strengths, things like that. So it could be a great tool for you to prepare for the analytical writing section. And again, this is available directly off of our website. So now that you've had a chance to get a glimpse of some of our preparation tools, let's talk a little bit about the strategies that we recommend at ETS. First and foremost, take advantage of the free prep material. This is very high quality preparation material that we make available to you because we want to help level the playing field. We want to provide you with high quality prep material to help you prepare as best as you can. Become familiar with the help section on the test so you know how to access the directions in case you need them. Really get familiar with how the test functions as well, using the calculator, navigating back and forth. So again, that goes back to taking advantage of the PowerPrep 2 software. Now, when you're within the test, we definitely recommend working as quickly as you can, of course, but without being careless. Now, each question carries no greater weight than the other. So if you're on a question and you find let's say you find the question very difficult, and you're sitting on it for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, that's taking away critical time from the other questions that you need to address. Now, the important thing to note here is that question that you find so difficult it carries the same amount of weight as the next question, which you may find a little bit less difficult, a little easier. So the important thing to note is just don't spend too much time on one particular question. One strategy that we do recommend is that once you're in one of the sections, so let's use the verbal reasoning section, for example, the first one, let's say. So we recommend going through the verbal reasoning section as quickly as you can, answering the questions that you can with certainty, and flagging the ones that you find at a moderate difficulty level and obviously the ones that you find most difficult. So we recommend going through, answering the ones you can with certainty, flagging the other ones that are more difficult. Once you answer the questions that you can with certainty, we recommend going back to the ones that you can answer that are the moderate difficulty levels, getting those done, and then finally going back to the questions that are the most difficult. So this helps you maximize the number of questions that you're answering. Because as I said, the test is right scored. Now, and you're not penalized for getting a score incorrect. Or getting a question incorrect. So let's say, for example, you're on one of the most difficult questions, and you're running out of time, and you're trying to figure out, what the best answer is. We recommend guessing. As I said, the test is right scored. You're not penalized for getting a question wrong. So when it comes down to it, if you're running out of time and you have a couple questions left that are very difficult, definitely guess to max. This is the best way to maximize your score, is to answer all the questions and not to leave any blank. Some other strategies that we recommend is we made that review screen available to you just to give you a sense of how many questions you've answered within a section, how many questions you haven't answered within a section. But the important thing is to not spend too much time in the review screen, because every second, minute you spend in the review screen is taking away from time that you have to answer the questions within a section. So it's important to reference it quickly just to get a sense of where you are, but don't spend too much time in that particular review screen. Also, the calculator. It's a great tool. We knew that you students would love it and likely take advantage of it, but you don't need it for every single question. We introduced the calculator to help you save time and avoid crunching numbers on paper and things like that. We want you to focus more on your critical thinking and reasoning skills rather than worrying about calculations. So that's why the calculator is available. However, you don't need it for every question, as I said. A lot of these questions can be figured out with reasoning, estimating, things like that. So just keep that in mind as you're going through. Last but not least, on the analytical writing section, be attentive to time when you're in the section, but just make sure you don't rush. It's important to come in with a plan to break down the 30 minutes that you get for each of the particular tasks. You break down a time to organize your thoughts, give yourself some time to prepare your thoughts, and then obviously time to actually write the actual essay. But we also highly recommend leaving maybe a minute or two at the very end just to proofread your response. Now, our readers or our raters know that this is a first draft. They understand the situation that you're under, and they're not going to penalize you for minor spelling errors, minor grammatical errors, things like that. However, if you do have errors in your response that take away from the overall meaning or overall effectiveness of the response, then there is a chance that your response will be scored lower. So we recommend leaving a minute or two, depending how much you think you need, to proofread your response at the very end, just to make sure there's no major errors major grammatical errors, things like that, in your particular response. But again, they do understand that it is a first draft. So last but not least, I wanted to tie the presentation up by talking a little bit about some of the added value resources that we have. And I touched on these a little bit, but I'll just go over them again just to give you a little reminder. First of all, when you register for the GRE Revised General Test, you're given the opportunity to send your ETS PPI reports to up to 4 different institutions. So again, what the ETS PPI, the ETS Personal Potential Index is, it's a admissions tool that is used by universities to evaluate your non-cognitive skills. So these are your soft skills like teamwork, communication skills, knowledge and creativity, ethics and integrity, things like this. So how it works is, if you decided you wanted to take advantage of the PPI, basically what it's going to do is it's going to provide a more complete picture of who you are as a student, letting universities know and programs know that you're more than just a test score, you're more than just grades, that you have these soft skills that really are critical for success in graduate and business school. So how it works for you is you would go into the ETS PPI system, and there's a link right off the GRE website and the registration website. You would go in and you would input your recommender's information. It's similar to a letter of recommendation. So those are the types of people that you would want to target for the ETS Personal Potential Index. So these can be employers, they can be advisors, anyone that's really able to comment on these particular skills for you. So you would put their email address in the PPI system. Then an email request would go out to the particular evaluator or recommender. The evaluator or recommender would then access the PPI system, and they would there's 4 questions within each of the particular attributes or soft skills that you see on the screen here. So you have knowledge and creativity, communication skills, teamwork, resilience, planning and organization, and ethics and integrity. So there's 4 individual questions underneath each of those particular soft skills. The evaluator is instructed to rate you on a 1 to 5 point Likert scale in response to each of those particular questions. So then an average score will be created for each of those particular soft skills or attributes. And once it's done, it'll be saved in your ETS PPI account. You can go in and pull those evaluations to build a PPI report to send off to a particular institution. And what's great about the PPI is you can pull up to 5 different evaluations from 5 different evaluators to build that PPI report to send off to institutions. In addition to that, we offer you a free listing in our GEO Research Service. And this, as I mentioned, is a database that you can opt into that universities purchase access to for recruitment purposes. So basically what a university will do is there's a list of 30 different criteria that a university will choose to find a particular student or applicant that they may be looking for their particular program. So all this information is collected from you in the beginning of the registration process, and it's put into this database along with your contact information, and basically schools will pull your information based on what they're looking for, and they may contact you to provide you with more information about their particular school, about their particular program. So it's really a great opportunity for you, especially if you don't know where you want to go to graduate or business school. You may be contacted by a program you never even heard of or you never even thought of, and it may be a fantastic fit. So it's really a great resource for you as students, and it's a great resource for universities because it helps them find students that they feel are the right fit for their program. It really helps match you up with the best program. So here are a few resources for you, a few links that you will find different information on. The first one is our takethegre.com website. This is our website dedicated specifically to you as the test taker. You can find registration information from here. You'll be able to find test preparation information from here. Pretty much anything and everything that you want to know about the GRE can be found from the takethegre.com website. And as you can see below that, there are direct links to preparation tools as well as direct links to our registration information. And of course, like everybody else, we have a Facebook page that's a very active page We have people monitoring it and responding to comments that you as students make, questions that you may have. We post tips, we post strategies, questions, sample questions, things like that. So it's a very interactive site. So if you want to take a look at it, please feel free to take a look at the Facebook page. You just type in the search GRE Revised General Test, and you'll be able to find it directly from there. And if you want to sign up for our test taker newsletter, I'm going to leave the QR code up here. I'm sure most of you have smartphones, as we all do these days. So if you want to sign up for our GRE test taker newsletter, feel free to use your smartphone and bring it up to the screen, and it'll bring you directly to our test taker newsletter registration site. So feel free to do that. And that concludes the presentation today, and I'll leave that up there in case you feel you want to do it, but I'm going to address your questions now. See. First question, what is the minimum score for an available scholarship? Well, currently we do not have any scholarships with the GRE program itself, but there are definitely universities around the world that do offer scholarships. And the minimum scores for scholarships will vary based on the particular school to which you're applying to. So I encourage you to contact the universities which you're applying to find out what their minimum requirements are for the scholarship. Get another question about the scholarships. As I said, I'm with the GRE program, and we do not have scholarships available. Many universities and programs do offer scholarships, so I encourage you to check with the university to find out what their minimum requirements are for scholarships. Next question, what are the tactics for remembering vocabulary of GRE for a non-native English speaker? Well, as I mentioned earlier, we removed the antonyms and analogies section from the GRE verbal section. So there's no more antonyms and analogies in the test. Vocabulary is still important, however, it's going to be measured within context. So you're going to get, for example, you'll get a paragraph, and there'll be blanks within the particular paragraph, and you'll have to choose the best word that fits that particular blank to make a coherent, meaningful whole paragraph. Now with those types of questions, there could be anywhere from 1 to 3 separate blanks, and to get full credit on the question, you do need to get all of the answers correct, because the goal of the question is for you to create a coherent, meaningful whole paragraph. So again, there's no partial credit for those particular questions if there's more than one blank. Next question, if I need more than 4 scores to be sent, do I have to pay? Well, the first 4 scores, when you register for the GRE, you're given the opportunity to send your scores to up to 4 schools free of charge at the testing center. Anything done outside of the testing center, there is a charge to do that. There's a $25 fee per school that you report your scores to. So let's say you're taking the test and you only send your scores to 3 schools at the center. Anything outside of the center, there is a charge for. So in order to take advantage of the 4 schools to send your scores to, you have to choose all 4 at the testing center. And we do recommend that you come to the testing center with up to 4 universities or programs that you want to send your scores to. Next question. I get this question probably every session that I do. How much time do you think one should spend to prepare for the GRE? Well, that's really going to vary based on you as the test taker. There's really no good answer to that question, unfortunately. I wish there was, because as I said, I get asked that constantly. But again, it's really going to depend on you as the test taker. We've made a number of free materials available to you, so I would definitely recommend starting there. Take a look at what we have and definitely take advantage of that PowerPrep 2 software. As I said, there's 2 free full-length practice tests in there. It gives you scores at the end, so it really gives you a good idea of how you would perform on the test, assuming you take it in the timed version and you actually sit for the full test. There is also an untimed version that you can take as well, but if you want to get those scores, you need to do it in the timed section, or the timed portion. Next question. If my recommender doesn't speak English, can I have the PPI translated? Currently, the PPI is brand new. It came out about 2 years ago, and we do have all of the PPI screens translated in Spanish as well as Mandarin Chinese. So there are PDFs available on the PPI website, printouts of the screens in, as I said, Spanish as well as Mandarin Chinese. Next question. Can you use your analytical writing score in addition to a new revised combined score on the GRE? I assume this question is related to score select. When you're sending your sets of scores to an institution, it's based on the test date. So it's got to be a full intact administration that you send your scores. That includes the verbal reasoning score, the quantitative reasoning score, as well as the analytical writing score. I apologize if I did not make that clear before, but when you're using the score select option, it has to be a full intact administration. You can't pick and choose a verbal score from one administration, a quantitative score from another administration, and an analytical writing score from another. It has to be from one full administration, and that's based on the test date or the administration date. Next question. What is the minimum score required to apply for an MS in industrial engineering? Well, again, this is difficult for me to answer because GRE requirements vary across programs and universities, so I encourage you to check with the university or program to which you're applying to find out what scores they would be looking for. Why is that universities keep their own deadlines for GRE scores? ETS lists official scores are available for 5 years, while some universities want it no more than 3 years old. Yes, this is true. I have seen this from time to time. I don't think it's that common, but there may be universities or programs out there that want scores that are 3 years old, or no more than 3 years old, 4 years old, or whatever it may be. And again, this is just based on what the university wants. We really have no control over what they decide to do. We provide them with best practices and recommendations, but again, it's their decision on how they want to conduct their admissions policies. So if you have questions about that, I would encourage you to check with the university to find out why they have that particular policy. Next question. Do we need to learn vocabulary before the test by heart? I wouldn't recommend doing this because, as I said, we did remove the antonyms and analogies, so there is not going to be any direct questions just based on vocabulary. Vocabulary is going to be measured within context now. So it's going to be measured within text completion sentence. So as I said, You're going to have paragraphs where there may be multiple blanks where you have to basically choose a word to complete that particular paragraph to create a coherent, meaningful whole paragraph or sentence or reading passage. So again, vocabulary is important, but it's going to be measured within context. We did remove the antonyms and analogies from the test because we didn't feel this was the best way to measure your skills for success in the graduate business schools now. A lot has changed, and really its vocabulary is measured within context within graduate business school programs. So that's the best way for you to be prepared for those particular situations that you may be in graduate business school. Not to say that antonyms and analogies are a bad way to assess your vocabulary, but we just felt we needed to make a change to make it more relevant to what you'd be doing in graduate business school. Question is, hi, I got a score of 1380 in the old GRE test, which I gave in 2009. Is it advisable to reattempt the GRE? Well, first of all, GRE, we do not combine scores. You're going to be getting a verbal score as well as a separate quantitative score. And it really depends. If you feel this is a good score that reflects your personal best, then you should use that score to apply to a particular program. I mean, scores are good for 5 years, so assuming the scores are still valid, which they definitely are since the test was taken in 2009, you could use those scores to apply to a particular program. If you feel you could do better on the test, you have that opportunity to retake the test if you'd like. Next question, how close is the unofficial score received at the test center on test day to the official score? The scores typically, they have to go through processing back at ETS. They are unofficial. We can't claim that they're official until they go through that processing, just to ensure that they will not change. It's possible they may change, but again, we're confident enough to provide you with that unofficial score at the time. But it is possible they could change. In the essay writing task, are we really supposed to type in a whole essay online? What are the minimum tactics for a good essay? Well, if you're taking the computer-based GRE revised general test, yes, the essay would be done online. So you would basically just type in the response on the computer. In terms of the best tactics, I recommend that you check out the Power Prep, as I mentioned before, because this provides you a lot of in-depth tips and strategies for the analytical writing section, how to prepare for it. We also publish all of the prompts directly on our website, so you can get a sense. There's over 500 of them, but you can get a sense of the types of prompts that you may see or that you will see on the test. We also make available our scoring guides that our raters use. So if you want to get a sense of what the raters look for when they score your test or you score your analytical writing section, I definitely recommend you take a look at those scoring guides. And those can be found right off of the takethegre.com website within the analytical writing section portion of the preparation portion of that section. So definitely take a look at that. All right, I'm going to take one more question here. A lot of similar questions, so I'm looking for one that's a little bit different. Okay, can you elaborate on the additional unscored section that appears during the test? Yes, and I should have mentioned this before. Excuse me. There is going to be an unscored section on the test. So it's likely going to be a verbal reasoning section or a quantitative reasoning section. This is not going to be identified, so you won't know if it is the unscored section. So it's very important that you do your best on all of the verbal reasoning and quantitative sections within the test. And this unscored section is used for research purposes. So we don't identify it because we want you to do your best on it, and it gives us valuable feedback about the questions and about the items that we use on the test. So that is going to be a part of the actual testing experience. But again, you're not going to know which one it is, so I highly recommend that you perform as best as you can on all of the sections in the verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning sections, measures. Okay, last quick one. I have already given them one GRE attempt and my score wasn't good enough for MIS. How do you recommend to go about the second attempt? If you don't feel your score was good enough, I definitely recommend taking it again. If you want to take it, as I said, take advantage of our free test preparation materials. They can be accessed directly on our website. But as I said, you do have that opportunity to take the test again, and you don't have to send the set of scores that you don't feel reflected your personal best to a particular program that you may be applying to. Alright, that is going to conclude the presentation and the Q&A session. I thank you so much for attending, and I hope this presentation was helpful to you. I'm going to put the links back on the page for one last second, so you can, if you want to jot those down, feel free to do so. But again, thank you very much. I appreciate all the questions and your participation in this session. Thank you very much.